Hi folks, welcome to the Cryptohack Virtual Meetup for May. Just going to give folks a few more minutes to find where we are, and we'll kick off in a few minutes. Looks like the stream is just firing up now. Just waiting to see if it's actually running. Haven't done this before, so we'll see. I'm treating it a bit like an experiment. I've got no idea if it's actually going to work. Cool, it looks like it's up and running. There's at least one person tuning in. I'll give it another couple of minutes just in case. Hopefully you tuned in to our Slack channel. If not, there's theoretically chat on the video on YouTube itself. So if you happen to have questions, just fire them in there. The Cryptohack team will pick them up and relay those to me. If there are ones that are particularly relevant as we go, I'll address those as we tick through. Otherwise, I will leave them at the end and we can go for a more Q&A style. We'll see how we go. We've got another couple of people signed on. I'm getting buffering notices. So I've got an amazing internet connection here in Carnegie, so we'll have a bit of buffering apparently, but if I kick off soon, folks, I should be far enough ahead that you won't, or hopefully won't notice. We will, I'll kick off in a second. I'm just going to turn off my things that might be chewing my bandwidth. Okay, it looks like we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Hopefully I've got a better internet connection now. Looks like it. So hopefully we'll be able to have a green stream for the rest of this evening. So without further ado, I will attempt to start again. So here we go. So for those who just tuned in, or were trying in vain to connect before, my name's Andrew. I'm one of the founders of Cryptohack. Cryptohack, if you haven't heard of it before, is the network of folks who work in software. So be you a designer, a developer, a tester, a security expert, an infrastructure person, anything in between. Network of all of those sorts of people who care about digital privacy and are keen to use their skills. We've all got sort of special superpowers from all our work in software to help make the tools that help us protect our privacy better. Tonight we're trying a brand new experiment. We're going to see if we can run talks like this online once a month as part of our hack nights. Just to, while we're spending our time improving the tools, just to spread a bit of knowledge about privacy. So this is a talk I've given a few times called Free Software and Digital Privacy. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll be as convinced as I am of the need for free and open source software in our fight to reclaim our privacy online. So just to kick off, just to give you a bit of background about who I am and how I got into this whole fight. My name's, as I said, I'm Andrew. I'm a software developer by day. I work for a company called ThoughtWorks. But by night, I do stuff like this. I do stuff for Cryptohack. I build other open source tools like an online organizing and membership database and a campaigning tool suite called Rubber Rouser, as well as run other meetups and stuff. I've been working in technology for about 10 years now. An avid user, much before that, and until a couple of years ago, I thought that I was really able to use my technical superpowers for good. I have been working in and around non-profits and with activists for a couple of years, helping them, make websites and use their tools better, extract the most value out of their aging systems, all that sort of stuff, and thought I was actually making the world a better place. What I was also doing at the time was adding helpful things like Google Analytics into all those sites that I'd build, and helping, using online services whenever I could. And then a couple of years ago, like a lot of us, I was floored by the Snowden revelations. Although the things I'd been dismissing for years, as what for those folks who wear tinfoil hats and stuff, I finally realized that actually no, they were kind of right. We have been giving up our privacy and giving away our freedom for years and years and years. And for a while, I was pretty depressed. I had felt I was part of the problem by just not realizing the cost of what the software industry was building. And it, the more I found out, the more overwhelming it was. Even I tried to think, doesn't affect us in Australia. It's, we're so far away from everything else. But we found out that it definitely does apply to us here. It's not just an overseas problem. If you may be aware of the Five Eyes network, which is Australia, the US, the UK, Canada, and New Zealand, who are more than happy to spy on each other and hand the data across those borders. In Australia, we've also had the introduction of the mandatory data retention laws recently, which mean that all our ISPs have to retain our metadata for 2 years, and it means that the government is able to get hold of any of that without a warrant. There are plenty of organizations who recently applied for that, and that's terrifying. There's new attempts to bring new crypto laws, or laws outlawing good tech. The governments are being tight-lipped, but there's one quote that Ed Snowden sort of came out with, which, after the initial round of leaks, that the quote was the really famous one: "If saying I've got nothing to hide, I don't care about privacy because I've got nothing to hide, is like saying I don't care about free speech because I've got nothing to say." That sort of really woke me up and convinced me that we've got a fight on our hands. There's the arguments we have to deal with are, we have to sacrifice some privacy so the government can protect us against the terrorists, and that's just not right. And what I realized is that privacy should be a choice, and everybody should be able to make an informed decision about how much they want to share in different contexts. And that led me to the work that I started doing with a bunch of folks, teaching people how to use these tools, how to use PGP, what apps to install on the mobile phones to best protect their privacy, and that work was really good. But it's really hard to scale that. We can teach a room of 20, 50, even 100 people at a time how to use, tell them to install Signal, but how the hell are we going to scale that out? And that's sort of where we're at the moment. How are we going to scale this out? But if we just step back for a moment, how did we even get here? Like, why is this a thing? So just cycling back to the Snowden leaks, if we think about what was the revelations in that, it's all about government snooping from the NSA, from the GCHQ, from ASIO. We see this slide at the moment. It's a list of plenty of organizations who signed up to the PRISM collection program, which is where the NSA asked companies to give over all their data, give them a special pipe. And you can see so many of the big companies that we're more than happy to use, including YouTube. The irony is not, hasn't slipped past. Plenty of these huge companies, and this timeline only goes up to 2012, that are more than happy to hand over that data. They're hoovering up so much information about us, and it's not just being used for security purposes. It's being shared with corporations. It's being taken from corporations and shared with other corporations and other governments through the Five Eyes networks. It's ridiculously cheap and easy for spy agencies to spy on your digital footprint. They can scrape up all the data in the world and then sift through it later once we've worked out what they're looking for. And I've got to just put a new slide in this deck. I'm just going to skip ahead to that now. I'll come back. But just to take on that idea that it's so easy and cheap to keep all this data. If we look at when in the East German state, when the Stasi put everyone under surveillance, that apparently they had a whole building full of files and stuff on the people that they wanted to track, and that was considered a lot at the time. That was considered scandalous. If we look at the corresponding area that the NSA have in their databanks, that scales up to about 17 million square kilometers worth of data, which is kind of scary actually. That's 42 trillion filing cabinets. It corresponds to 5 zettabytes printed, which is a colossal amount of money. This stuff is really, really scary. So that's an astounding amount of money of data, and it just links back to this idea that you don't have to have committed a crime. They're going to be storing that for as long as they can, and looking for private activities that can be used to discredit you. And it's not just governments. Companies are more than willing to track your behavior and market to you. So here are the NSA GCHQ projects and tools that are out there at the moment. There are a lot. If we look to the left of the slide, there's an axis that starts on foreign on one end and domestic on the right. When we look at the top, we can see bulk collection programs, and at the bottom the targeted programs. So if we in the top right hand, we've got the bulk domestic program. So that includes things like PRISM and phone metadata. If we look in the top left quadrant, we've got all the foreign bulk collection things like Angry Birds or Squeaky Dolphin. They got kind of funny names, but they're not. I think they're still pretty scary programs. And this is what we knew about in 2012. I think I think it's interesting to note that the domestic/targeted quadrant, they probably weren't leaked and not published, and those are programs. They're more like your traditional surveillance things that require an actual warrant and actual skills on the ground to target folks that have genuine suspicion. all these other programs seem to be hoovering up everything about everyone, whether they're under suspicion or not, and that's the thing that's really scary. So most common argument that we've seen against, why should I care about my privacy? I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide from someone. We share information with a doctor that we wouldn't want to share with our employer, or with our partner that we wouldn't want to share with our parents. Privacy is about having the ability to manage our own information as we see fit. And this is the difference between secrecy and privacy. Privacy allows you to make choices about what information you share. We all wear clothes, we all have doors on the bathroom, and that's not the same as secrecy. We all know what everyone's probably doing in the bathroom, but it's our choice to shut the door. So if surveillance isn't about catching terrorists, then what is it? It's got to be about something. It's probably more about compliance. There's a lot of social theory going back a long time about using surveillance to keep a population under control. And as we've seen several times, that as far as governments are concerned, dissent and terrorism are the same thing. If you look at very high profile circumstances like David Miranda being detained in Heathrow a couple of years ago, smears across the public profiles of Glenn Greenwald, Chelsea Manning, etc. In Australia, the increasing step towards criminalisation of protest. This is all equating you don't agree with us with you're doing the wrong thing. We've had vast increases in the use of the Espionage Act in the US to prosecute leaks, and there's plenty of evidence out there to show that when people think they're under surveillance, they modify their behaviour to be compliant. And this is how governments actually keep control of their population, by making them afraid to dissent. However, it's only through organised dissent that society can change. So, this is all meant to get you angry. The government wants to control us through fear. They want to smear us, and they want us to pay for the privilege. Though, ironically, since companies like Google and Facebook don't pay tax, they're not helping prop up this surveillance state. So we want privacy. That's a good thing. But how can we? And there are plenty of tools out there and plenty of stuff that says they will defend our privacy. But how do we actually know we have privacy? One thing we do know, and that Snowden has told us, is that good crypto still works. Ed Snowden has said there are still things that are safe. Encryption works. This is a quote from Snowden. Encryption works. Properly implemented strong crypto systems are one of the few things that you can rely on. Unfortunately, endpoint security is so terrifically weak that the NSA can frequently find ways around it. So unpacking that, the crypto itself is good, but it's all the things around it that make it weak. So all the bits and pieces that make it actually usable. So if we think about free and open source software, there's plenty of examples where the culture that free and open source software communities rely on to get cool stuff done, that's also helped cryptographers out in the past. So if we look at, this is a famous shirt, this is the RSA encryption algorithm in Perl, printed on a shirt. This is in the era when strong crypto was considered in the same as a munition, and it was not allowed to be exported. So if this sort of defiant commitment to open sharing of knowledge and collaboration, we think about, particularly these days, with a bit of hindsight, this is a real attempt to limit our privacy, and so the way we can defend against this is to share what knowledge we can. And there's this is just straight up censorship. There's an interesting case in Canada just before, in the last year or so of Prime Minister Harper's government in Canada, before Trudeau was elected. They, particularly conservative government, didn't like the climate science that was happening, so and wanted to suppress that. So what they did was made a law that government-paid scientists weren't allowed to speak about their science, and it got to the point before Trudeau was elected where there would be government goons standing over scientists at press conferences to make sure they didn't say anything out of turn. Now that feels like something out of any of the fascist states in Europe at their height. That's truly terrifying. So the way we can get around that is by sharing as much as we can. And if we think about the time that this shirt came from, the first crypto war, we've since come to call it, where PGP was born, and Phil Zimmerman famously got around the munitions ban on strong crypto by printing it in a book, because books are protected speech. So he was allowed to export that, but not to transmit software, over the internet, which is a bit terrifying. We're cycling back on this, and we've now in the period, probably, we'll be able to look back in a few years and say we're probably in the middle of the second crypto war now. Every time some disaster happens and people are killed, folks want to blame cryptography for it, and it's not whether the folks who were involved were actually using encryption or not. And there's a bill that came up in the American one of the American chambers. Senators Burr, must be the Senate. Senators Burr and Feinstein in April brought a law basically banning strong crypto. And this is terrifying. So crypto in particular, writing good crypto is really hard, and we need lots and lots of experts' eyes on it. So the whole thing doesn't really work if we're working in closed systems. We can pretty much trust free software because we can see it, we can poke it, we can research it. We've got transparency. We can share what we know. We can build on previous work and make stuff better. Also, because Bruce Schneier said so, and he would know about this sort of stuff. He's one of the if you haven't seen Bruce Schneier's stuff, definitely look it up. He's one of the sort of leading security and crypto researchers. Here's what Bruce Schneier said from 1999. As a cryptography and computer security expert, I have never understood the current fuss about the open source software movement. In the cryptography world, we consider open source necessary for good security. We have for decades. Public security is always more secure than proprietary security. It's true for cryptographic algorithms, security protocols, and security source code. For us, open source isn't just a business model, it's smart engineering practice. So Bruce Schneier said it 17 odd years ago. It's not new. So it's important to remember that free software doesn't necessarily protect our privacy, but we can't have privacy without free software. So we're just going to have a quick dive into a sort of a practical example of all of this. So you might be aware that WhatsApp, huge messaging app, it has been around a couple of years. Recently had some really good crypto implemented into it and released around the world, and some spectacular fallout from that, most notably in Brazil, where the Brazilian government didn't particularly want folks to be able to have private messaging, so they demanded WhatsApp give them the ability to decrypt it. WhatsApp refused, and WhatsApp was banned. So sort of a nice, it's got some privacy stuff in there, and we think it's good. But let's step back a bit. So where did this all come from? In 2014, there seemed to be this explosion in messaging apps for smartphones. So things like Telegram, Line, Viber, WhatsApp, all of these things. Some of them claim to have private messaging. So Telegram's famously had a secure messaging thing, but that was very closed and wasn't considered very good, and as a result, they didn't garner a whole lot of trust. At that time, WhatsApp was just growing and growing and growing, and it was bought by Facebook for ridiculous amounts of billions of dollars. I think it was about $16 billion. So hugely valued. Plus, you might argue it was overvalued, but Facebook spent that much money on it. At the same time, some smart folks at Open Whisper Systems, led by Moxie Marlinspike, started developing some really neat tools called, at the time, TextSecure for Android, based on a new cryptographic protocol to do all the sorts of fancy things you need when you want truly private, secure messaging. And just for, if folks haven't heard of TextSecure, you might know it better now as Signal. When they released the iPhone version, they called it Signal, and eventually changed the name of the Android version to Signal as well. And now Signal does encrypted text and voice calls, and it's pretty great. But the thing that makes that work is this magic double ratchet algorithm, which I don't really understand. I've read this document. It goes way over my head. I've read it probably 2 or 3 times. I think I understand it a bit more each time, but I still don't really. I can say all the words, but I don't think it's sunk in. Fortunately, I don't have to. But I can tell you where this thing came from, which is really interesting in the open source context. This thing has been called the double ratchet algorithm, and it is the sort of the brains behind Signal, and also the other things that Open Whisper Systems have worked on as well. So this is supposedly what's driving the encryption behind WhatsApp. This thing was previously known as the axolotl ratchet, and it was based on the Diffie-Hellman, which was originally introduced in OTR, which is off-the-record messaging, which was a protocol that enabled perfect forward secrecy, which is a really great thing in messaging. It gives you things like deniability. Even if you lose a key, if a key gets compromised, you still can't decrypt old messages. It's a really neat thing. What Moxie and friends did was take that, combine it with a symmetric key ratchet, which was modeled after the Silent Circle instant messaging protocol, and then I guess they put that in a jar and shook it up for a while and came up with the double ratchet algorithm. So what's important to note, this thing, which is an open protocol, has come from 2 other open protocols. It's building on works of other people, and that, I think, is a really important point. So if we're thinking about how we can trust Signal and how we could trust WhatsApp, we know that that Moxie Marlinspike has had a lot to do with it. He has done a lot of work. Has really good security credentials, really good open source security credentials, has a really sort of public history of working on this sorts of stuff. So to a certain degree, we can trust Moxie. So we can trust the double ratchet algorithm, and because it's free software, we can trust Signal as well, and all of that mixed together gives us a pretty good degree of trust. But what about WhatsApp? We know that Moxie has said that it's got the double ratchet encryption in it. That seems like a good thing, but we don't know what the app does with it. We know that WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, so we don't know what they're doing with it either. So once it's gone off, we think it's probably secure, but how can we really trust it? And I think that's an open question to the group. And if anybody is still watching and keen to have a discussion after this, visit cryptohack.net and jump onto our chat group and have a chat about how we can we trust WhatsApp. I think there's definitely an argument to say that it's putting something in WhatsApp is better than nothing, but if we really want to drill down to this idea of trust, can we trust it? So that's it. That's the end of the talk. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Andrew. I'm Where's My Taco on Twitter, or Cryptohacknet on Twitter, or cryptohack.net is our web address. So we're about to dive into a hack night. We're going to do some work on Pixelated, a private email solution. It's pretty fun to work on. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. All right. I think I'll leave the stream open a little bit more for questions. If anybody has any questions, please type them on the screen now. Let's see if I can. Okay, so questions. Okay, I'll give it one more minute. If you do have any questions, feel free to contact me on Twitter. You can find me at Where Is My Taco, or you can get in touch with us through the Cryptohack website at cryptohack.net. All right, that'll probably do. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope to see you in hacking on some pixelated code, or again at another live stream talk. If you have any feedback for us, let us know. This has been a wacky experiment, and if it worked, let us know. If it didn't work, let us know, and we'll see how we go. Thanks very much for tuning in.